All right, well, good evening. We're here at Open Door Church, and we are having financial classes. I'm not really sure exactly what that means. It's not really a program that we used. It's not somebody's information. It's really a conglomerate of a lot of things that I've been looking at for, a season, and things that I have read over the past several years and those kinds of things. I really, really do think that if you are here, or if you are watching and you are looking to get, is it a little bit loud? I'll back up and I'll see if we can do something about that a little bit. If you don't have notebooks, I'm going to pass these out as well. Here's a notebook you can use. And here, I'm going to give you one as well. You're welcome just to take a couple of notes. I encourage you to do so. I was really hoping to have some really good slides and some things that you could fill in the answers, but life has gotten goofy again, which life often gets goofy. And so I don't really have that. So I think what that really means is just simply this. You will probably have to work a little extra hard to pay real close attention and to be able to stay with it. You've heard me say, and I've likened it before, that sometimes you have to work for your food. On certain Sundays, things can kind of be a struggle, and you have to work a little harder than others to get there and stuff. But I think what you're going to find is that tonight's going to be really, really, really helpful. And I do want to appreciate everybody who's watching online. I know that it's in the middle of summer, and it's hard to always get into church when the church doors are open. But it's nice that we can watch different things online. And the nice thing about being online is if I get really rambly, I can edit, so that's really, really good. Guys, here's really what I want to do. We're going to be meeting for 3 weeks, and I hope that you guys will come all 3 weeks. But for tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to look at one specific aspect of finances, okay? And it's really going to be more of like a biblical or a spiritual aspect of finances and stuff. If you're watching online, you probably hear some chaos going on. We have a bunch of our little kids that are heading downstairs with their, there's one wanting to come up and say hi, which is awesome. I'm so thrilled that we have young parents that are wanting to, that's all good, who's wanting to learn some really, really good stuff. And I'm hoping that the good truths that you guys are going to learn and everything, you will be able to pass on to others as well. Guys, in regards to money, I want to really begin by just saying to this. I don't think that money is something, currency, if you want to call that. I don't think that that's something that took God by surprise. I think God recognized and realized that money or currency was going to be something that we would use as humans to be able to, exchange. If you think about that a little bit, it's kind of interesting. You kind of wonder what that was like. Did somebody say, hey, I've got a side of beef. Hey, well, I've got a field of wheat. Let's do some exchanging. Well, how do you can imagine the complications of trying to exchange different things like that. There is definitely, guys, a practical side to money. And I think that that's often where we are, and that's what we often think about, the practical side of it. And we'll dig a little deep and kind of cultivate what that really looks like. But guys, I am telling you that I think really more than anything else, there is a spiritual side to money. And maybe you're like, yep, I can see that. Or maybe you're thinking, wow, I've never given that a thought at all before. I want to challenge you to think about this. We'll dig deep into this today. This is really where we're going to go today, all right? Next week, we're going to talk about how you can have a ridiculous ridiculous amount of money when you retire, how you can have just a ridiculous amount of money, right? We'll talk about those things, and we'll just unpack this and everything else. It's awesome. We see more and more people coming in. So again, when it comes to money, two different things. I think that there's a practical side, and I do think that there's a spiritual side to way we look at, think about, and handle our finances. Let's talk about the practical side for just a moment. What are some of the practical things that we use money to do or accomplish? What are some practical aspects when it comes to money? Who can just give me some quick answers? I don't, no trick questions here, but practical side of money. What do you use money for? You buy a car with money. If you go to the Chevy dealership and you say, I want one of those nice, new, beautiful Colorados, fire engine red with the railings and stuff on the side, they're going to say, okay, show us the money. Before we say, we will show you the keys. Show us the money, all right? So to buy a car, what are some other practical things you use money for? You're going to buy a house with money, that's hard and stuff. What other things do we use money for? What's that? A hot water heater. Hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah for hot water heaters. Not so much in the summer. I could almost get by without a hot water heater, but I'm going to tell you, like Little House on the Prairie, I watched that show and I'm thinking, yeah, I don't think I could do that quite easily. Guys, there are two other things that I think that we use money for practically. Yes, we buy things with money that we need, but there's two other things. For retirement, that's huge. That's my third one that's on my list. My very, very first one I think might be as important as any. The first one is we need money if we find ourselves in a hard place and in a bad situation. We better have some money because money can help us when the hot water heater blows up, or when the car blows up, or when, the house blows. I don't know if the house blows up, but money can be very, very helpful when we find ourselves in difficult places. Number two, we need money to be able to buy things. Our food, our housing, our essential needs, our hot water heaters, and our cars, and so forth. It's hard to be able to have those things if you don't have money. And then number three, as Elna was saying, she said for like retirement, I gave it a different word, building wealth. And I do think it's important that we build wealth because I'm 54 years old. My wife, she's a little bit older than me, but I won't say how old she is, okay? She just had a birthday yesterday. But the fact is I'm hoping that there's going to come a time when we look at each other and say, hey, I'm not so sure we shouldn't retire. And hopefully she'll say yes. And hopefully we will have built enough wealth so that we can retire. And I tell you, nothing really grieves me more. There's a gentleman at one of our local hardware stores. And I frequent the hardware store. And I am pretty sure this guy is well into his 70s, probably getting close to 80. And if I go to this hardware store during a particular set of hours, I pretty well expect to see him working one of the registers. They don't give him a stool to sit on. He has to stand there. Now, he does have like one of those memory foam cushion things, but I'm thinking when I'm 76, 77 years old, I don't want to have to be standing over a register, right? And there are a lot of other really good things that we can do with wealth, or with money. So I do think it's important. Now, that's the practical side of this. But I also said that there's a spiritual side to money. And I have three things here. I tried to spend significant time trying to come up with the best words. And I don't know if these words are great, but I think I can explain it well enough that you'll understand where I'm going. the thing of it is when it comes to wealth, there's kind of a reality that we recognize when it comes to wealth. I remember when I was young, and I realized that the house that I grew up in on a horse ranch, with horse jumps and an outdoor riding arena with fences and jumps and a big barn, I realized, I think, after getting on and off the bus a handful of times from some of my friends, like, wow, you have a really, really nice house. And I remember kind of coming to that reality. And I remember coming to the reality that I don't have any money, but my mom and my dad do. And just that perspective, and really that's the second word there. I think with finances come a perspective. The thing is, Cody, when you were born into the world, even though your mom and your dad may have had money, and you may have had grandparents that had money, and they would have, made sure that you got the best doctors, the best food, the best everything else. The reality is, when you were born into this world, you came into this world with nothing. You came into this world with nothing. I think of Adam and Eve, right? We're thinking of them in the garden. They're in the garden. They're like, wow, nice garden. They didn't do anything. They were just kind of there. We have an incredible world with incredible resources in the world, all kinds of incredible things. We did not do anything to bring that about. My point really here is the things that we have, we can say, well, I work really, really hard and I get an income. I'll buy that. You can say, hey, I went out to the woods, I got a chainsaw, I went out to the woods and I cut down trees and I skimmed the bark off and I made a log cabin and I dug a well and I've got a rope and all of this stuff. Look at all of the things that I have accomplished. And to a degree, we can all recognize that, right? I mean, the sweat of our labor. But the reality is we didn't make the land, we didn't make the trees, we didn't make ourselves. We didn't say, hey, I'm going to have muscles on my arms so that I can wield a chainsaw. I'm going to, any of those kinds of things, right? These things did not come from us. They came from God. And so we have perspective there. Now, absolutely, we can be lazy and still have an awful lot, probably still in America be among the richest people in the world, or we can work really, really hard and accomplish incredible things and have a house that people all go, wow, and have a car and have a big hot water heater that never runs out of hot water. All of these nice things, drive the most beautiful cars with the most beautiful displays and stuff. I rode in one of their cars. I was like, wow, this is like a really nice car. But all of those kinds of things, we can work hard to achieve for ourselves different kinds of things. But guys, I got to tell you, we have to come to this mindset, or at least we would do so very well to come to the mindset that we came into this world with nothing. We didn't give ourselves life. We didn't make muscles upon our body. Even the talents that we have, whether it's a good voice or the means to be able to wield a chainsaw well, or, to work on cars or whatever it is, those things have been gifted to us as well. I think it's so important that we recognize that and remember that. Two different things here. Let's kind of shift into another gear. How do you think God intended it to be? It being, we'll say life. How did God intend it to be? And then what will it be like? The way that it will be. I want to take a moment and let's think a moment about the Garden of Eden, okay? I can't imagine. I don't know what it was like. I do find myself kind of daydreaming. I visualize, if you will, a tropical area. Does that sound right? a warm, beautiful climate, tropical area. I kind of envision, beautiful creeks, rivers, a cool breeze, the most perfect kind of weather, fruit on trees all over the place, and just as wonderful as can be. Adam and Eve, the thing is, I think in the Garden of Eden, there were some things. First of all, I believe in the Garden of Eden, God provided everything. Everything was provided for them. And I think also in the Garden of Eden, there was joy, and there was purpose, and there was contentment. Now, let me ask you this. What do you think I mean by purpose? What purpose did they have in the Garden of Eden? Can you think of anything? Do you remember the instructions that God gave Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden? What did God ask Adam to do there in the Garden of Eden? Do you remember? Yeah. Yeah, hey, you know what? I want to have you name all these animals. I'm going to have you, take care of things and tend to the garden. And you know what? You can work here and manage it and all of the fruit and everything else. This is a wonderful place. You're just absolutely going to love it. Wow, I have a purpose. I have joy and contentment. Guys, I'm going to tell you something. I think one of the most powerful words, desires that we could strive for in life, that most people never truly get, is this word contentment. I think that is a huge, huge word, contentment. And I'll just paint a real quick picture for you, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong here. I remember when I was a kid, it's Christmas morning. You remember how you're just out of your minds on Christmas morning when you're a little kid, right? You're ready to go down the stairs and you're so excited you miss like half the stairs. You end up doing a couple of somersaults. You put a big dent in the drywall, but it doesn't matter because it's Christmas morning, right? And you go to the tree, mom and dad come down and you start opening up presents and all of this stuff. And one of the things that I remember that I got was a ColecoVision. Do you remember the ColecoVision? So it was like the Atari on steroids back in the day. And they had Donkey Kong. And their version of Donkey Kong was so realistic. Do you remember that on ColecoVision? And I remember getting ColecoVision, and I got Donkey Kong, Venture, I think was another game, and Zelda. I think those were the three games. I can remember that so clearly. And I remember taking my ColecoVision and hooking it up to the television and turning on the stereo so you could hear bump, 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 and whatever else, and playing that. And I have to tell you, I sit there and in my mind I thought, I have arrived. This is like the greatest thing. Life could not get any better than this. And I was so content. But what do you think would happen if, I were able to go through a little, time warp or wormhole or whatever they call those things, right? And show up and take a look at the way the world would be 20 years later and the gaming systems that they would have 20 years later. After the ColecoVision, you had Nintendo 64, you had all of these things. You remember all those different steps? And the game systems that they have today, you can be playing a game. You can walk into a room, see people, maybe they're playing. Hey, is that a movie, or are you playing a video game? It looks that real. Do you think that me, 10-year-old boy, after playing Donkey Kong, going through the time warp, do you think I would have been happy with my Donkey Kong ColecoVision had I seen, the video games 20 years later and stuff? Contentment is an interesting, very, very, very interesting thing, right? We're going to talk about how we can achieve contentment. When the fall took place in the Garden of Eden, something very, very interesting happened. You remember? God's providing everything. There's joy, there's purpose, and there's this incredible contentment, okay? But I want you to think about how things looked after the fall, or as a result of the fall. God's provision, I'm not so sure. I mean, things have gotten really, really hard, and we're being removed from this Garden of Eden. Is God really providing for us? I mean, I guess he made us some clothes, but I don't really know anymore. Was work enjoyable? Well, it says that, the ground, produced thorns and stuff, and it was hard, not easy to work the soil. Work suddenly became hard, frustrating, and sometimes you failed at it, and you had to go back and do it again. Sometimes you would spend a day, one of the worst days ever in my mind is working really, really hard, and then at the end of the day, turning around and looking at it and realizing I worked so hard, but there wasn't anything here that really got accomplished. In other words, I was spinning my wheels, or however you could define it. That's a bad day. Well, I think that's kind of how it felt. There was far less joy. I don't think that they felt as though they really had the kind of purpose that they had before. And contentment, no, I don't think there was very much contentment. I mean, it doesn't take long reading in the book of Genesis. You think of Cain and Abel. Cain wasn't very content. I can't believe that you like Abel more than me, and you like to sacrifice. I mean, all of this stuff got messed up. The problem was there was an influence that came in, an influence of lies. And guys, that's what I really want to tell you. There is influence out there that wants to lie to us. And it's the same today as it was way back when in the Garden of Eden. An influence of lies, an influence of deception, an influence of that brings about a lack of trust and faith and hope. And I'll paint it out for you really, really quickly and easily. The serpent shows up, right? And they're in the Garden of Eden. They've had perfect content, perfect joy, perfect everything else. And this serpent begins to mess with Adam and Eve. Hey, you can eat of every tree in the garden. Yes, we can eat of every tree. Well, with the exception of this tree. We can't eat of this tree right here. Well, why can't you eat of that tree? Oh, because it says that we'll surely die. Oh, you will not surely die. The fact is God doesn't want you to eat of that tree, because God has he's got a motivation that quite frankly, just between me and you, should be questioned. Okay? God doesn't really have good motives. He knows that once you eat of that tree, you're going to become like him. And that's probably not going to make God very happy, because he likes being here and he likes having you here. So you're saying I could eat of that tree, and instead of God being up here, I could be like right there as well? That's exactly what I'm saying. So you're telling me that I shouldn't trust God and what God said and what God told us and those kinds of, that's, I hate to say it. I mean, God's a great God. But yeah, I think you shouldn't necessarily listen to what he's saying. I think there's a better way, and eating that fruit is definitely going to be a better way for you. And so they fall into this. Guys, I'm going to tell you, you've heard me say it a million times. I'll say it again. God created us, and he knows what's best for us. I had my first steel chainsaw. I like my chainsaws, okay? I've had a couple. I had one had a bar on it like that long. I paid my first year of college. I think I told that story recently, cutting trees during J term, and Dad helped me, and we dropped these big old trees. But there was one time somebody asked if they could borrow my chainsaw. By the way, if you come to me and you say, "Hey Jeff, can I borrow your chainsaw?" I'm going to say two things to you. Number one, I'm going to say, no. And then I'll say, but I'll come and I'll help you. But I lent out my chainsaw, and a couple of things happened. First of all, with a steel chainsaw, it takes a specific ratio of 2-cycle oil to gas. And it's different than most other chainsaws, like an Echo or whatever else. It's a different ratio. Well, I lent out my chainsaw, and this person used it for a long time and ran out of the gas that I gave him and mixed up his own gas and put the wrong kind of fuel, didn't put ethanol free, which I really like in my chainsaw, particularly, and some other things, and didn't put the right oil mixture in there. That was one thing. Secondly, the bar got bent on it. So when I got it back, I couldn't get it started for the life of me. And I ended up having to take the carburetor all apart, try to rebuild it, and it would run, but it never was the same. I had to put a new bar on it, put a new chain on it and stuff. But the bottom line is it never was the same. It never was the same. And I was just like, I always grieved that, and stuff. And, it's no big deal. It's a chainsaw, right? I'm glad that the person was able to use it, and hopefully they accomplished what they wanted to. But I would rather use my chainsaw and go. So, guys, the people who make the chainsaw know what's good for the chainsaw. And it's the same thing with us. The one who made us knows what's good for us. And so God, the one who made us, said, hey, listen, there are things that you should do, and there are things that you shouldn't do. Don't run straight fuel in the chainsaw, because if you do, you'll just tear that thing up. Don't, when you're cutting the tree, yank on the thing and bend there's things that you need to be careful about, things that you need to do, things that you don't need to do. And if you trust me on these things, I'm going to tell you, you'll have joy, and you'll have contentment, and you will do well. You will do well. Guys, I want to do well. I want to have joy, and I want to be content. I do. Those are the three things that I want to, and really even more than all of that, and we'll talk about this a little bit later as well. I want to honor the Lord with what He has given us. We'll talk about that. Guys, think about your kids. Now, you guys got a couple of little kids, right? You got 3 little kids. You let me play grandfather with them, to which you have no idea how much I value that. I enjoy that and stuff. It's interesting. I'm still waiting to be a grandfather, but I keep thinking about it all the time. And every time I see little kids, I'm so in tuned, it seems like right now and stuff. And I watch this. Our kids, it's interesting, the mindset of a little kid. We tell our kids a lot of different things for their good, don't we? All right. We'll say little Timmy, okay? We don't have any little Timmys, I don't think. So little Timmy, it's really important that you eat your what? Your vegetables. Little Timmy, you need to learn all that you can, and you need to work very, very hard in school to make good what? Timmy, it's really, really important that you choose your friends wisely. This is important. If you have good friends, then life will be so much easier to make good decisions. But if you don't have good friends, they may try to lead you in places where you're not making, good decisions and those sorts of things. And Timmy, listen, we live on a busy road. So when you want to cross the street to go play in the cul-de-sac, you need to do what? That's right. Look right, look left, maybe look right again, but and then be careful as you cross the street. All of these things because we want what's good, for our kids. Isn't it interesting though that, even little bitty kids, different ones at different times like to sometimes give us a little pushback. Do your kids ever give you little bits of pushback? Why do you think it is that they don't just say, oh, eating my vegetables will make me big and strong and healthy? Cool. I need to learn how to spell words and to memorize that I before E except after C and what's up with the English language? I do not know. But, I remember my mom and dad telling me all of these things, and I remember thinking, that's not important. History is not important. I remember thinking, that's why we have calculators. And those calculators are only getting smarter. I remember, all of these reasons and stuff. Why is it that kids want to sometimes push back? I'm going to give you a hint. They're the same reasons why we push back against God and the things that God has to say for us. I'm going to give you a couple of them. Lack of understanding, I think, is a huge one. Kids don't understand. You're going to grow big and strong. Well, what does that even mean? That's a concept. You say that, but you don't realize that I fully grasp that. You say, I'll look like Peyton Manning. Well, why would I want to look like Peyton Manning? Whatever. It's a lack of understanding. Okay? And so you can sit there and you can say to them, you just need to have faith in me. Well, that's even more foreign to a little child, right? You understand that, right? Another one is it seems unpleasant. It doesn't taste really good. I would much rather eat chocolate than eat vegetables, or Skittles. Especially if you ever had and I'm going to tell you, sour Skittles are wonderful, especially if they're cold. Have you ever put them in the refrigerator? I don't know why, but they're better. Just like Reese's, I'm going to tell you the best way to eat a Reese's cup is right out of the freezer. I just bypass the refrigerator anymore. They go right in the freezer. I let them kind of like melt in my mouth as I'm chewing them, and that sort of thing. And it's just good. But as a child, eating vegetables, learning 7 times 7 is 49, 7 times 8 is 56, 7 times 9 is 63. You remember going through all of those things and memorizing? Does that seem pleasant? Well, sometimes things don't seem pleasant for little children, and so they push back. We as adults do the same thing, I think, often with God. It seems unpleasant at the time. We do not realize that by doing this, it's going to benefit us greatly down the road, exponentially. You spend 3 hours doing this, and you will have 3,000 hours of later on in life doing that. And then the fourth one. Anyone want to guess the fourth reason why sometimes children just like to push back a little bit? I'll give you a hint. 3 syllables. First letter begins with an R. It's the same thing that happened in the Garden of Eden. There was rebellion. You keep telling me what to do, Mom. I kind of get tired of you telling me what to do. I would like to decide for myself what time to go to bed and what to eat and what not to eat and whether or not I should do my homework. In fact, I don't like you being in charge of me all the time. I think I would just like to be in charge of myself. Guys, plain and simple, that's just rebellion. That's just rebellion. I'm the parent and you're the child. I don't like that. I don't like that. So I'm going to rebel. Kids do this. Good kids do this. Adults do this. Good adults do this. Christians do this. Sometimes even good Christian people do this. Guys, I'm gonna tell you, you think about this and you spend time thinking about that, and it'll hurt you a little bit. It'll hurt you a little bit to realize just how true that statement is. People say, Jeff, you're just a big kid. Yeah. I hate that, but yeah. I told the story where I was on the jet ski and Mom was in the boat, and I spun the jet ski around and I threw a bunch of water in the boat, and instead of getting Matthew and Bethany, I got my mom. She was so mad. She said to me, what was it that she said? Will you ever grow up? That's what she said to me. She was mad. Will you ever grow up? And like, Mom, I am so sorry. I could just see her getting red. I mean, the water was like steaming off of her, you know? And I joke, but guys, I hope you're hearing what I'm saying to you. Kids usually will pick and choose, and we often do the same. We say to our kids, you should go to bed early and you should get up early. Some kids will say, okay, your kids, oh my lands, they get up way too early. Okay, I heard you guys say that and stuff. Okay, well, that's a good thing. Early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and is that biblical? No, it's not biblical, but it's a nice saying, and we, you know, I buy into that. You know what? You should go outside and play. Put your phone down or put the game control down and go outside and play. You shouldn't waste your money. Oh, I remember saying this so many times to Matthew. Matthew, you shouldn't waste your money on that, but you should save it for something more worthwhile. You should say your prayers. You know, let's get into the habit of saying prayers, you know, before we eat, you know, before we go to bed, before we get on the school bus, let's get in a habit. This is a routine that would be so helpful for you to learn so that you find yourself later in life praying all the time. You should do that. You should listen to those who are older and in authority. Some kids, you know, they will pick and choose certain things. They'll say, oh, really? I can be big and strong? I will eat my vegetables then. You know, Popeye, remember the Popeye, I'm strong to the spinach, or something, because I eat my spinach. Popeye the Sailor Man, toot, toot. They'll buy into certain things because they have different logic and so forth. And guys, it's the same thing for us, but spiritually. Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not steal. You shall obey your parents. You know, sexuality. No other gods before me. I mean, there's all kinds of things that God says in the Bible, right? Do these things. You would do very, very well to do these things, just like you would do very, very, very well to put chainsaw oil in the chainsaw compartment to lubricate the bar and the chain of the chainsaw while it's going around. Did you remember me telling you the story? My dad was at the firehouse one day. It was like 3 years into me having my mini bike. I loved my mini bike. I had so much freedom with my mini bike. I would go back in the woods and ride my mini bike through the trails, through the creek, along the railroad train tracks, all over the place. Loved that mini bike. But my dad told me, he said, Jeff, you need to always make sure that at least once a week you unscrew the little cap and you look in the little oil thing to see if there's oil in there. And if there's not oil in there, you need to put the right oil in there. I remember my dad telling me that. Do you remember me telling you the story that Dad was at the fire station? I tried to call the fire station, but they were out on a run. I was impatient, so I went to the garage and got some oil and put it in my chainsaw, or in my mini bike. Do you know what kind of oil I put in there? Chainsaw oil. It was a very, very hot day. Fortunately, I was only about a half a mile away from my house, and I'm riding my chainsaw, and all of a sudden, boom, and the back wheel just went, choo, and I skid, whoa, and got it under control. And I said, and I looked at it and says, why is there a rod of metal sticking out of my mini bike engine? And I threw the rod right through the side of the motor. Just because I put the wrong kind of oil in there. Guys, I'm telling you, and I know you're hearing me when I say this, but guys, spiritually, there are things and lessons that God wants us to grasp so that we can enjoy the mini bike. God doesn't have a problem with the mini bike. He's like, enjoy the mini bike. But don't put that kind of oil in the mini bike. Well, I thought you said this is spiritual. Okay, well then we'll say it more this way. Rated PG-13 starting now. God said you should have sex this way under these parameters. And yeah, it seems really, really, really narrow and stuff. And you think, oh, but you know what? I can really imagine having sex, sexual, whatever's this way or sexual whatever's that way. And that just seems like a whole lot more than better than, what you're saying. And the thing of it is, so many people to go out there and they're doing what they think's great. And they're just pouring motor or chainsaw bar oil in their mini bike. And they're wondering why one day things just kind of go, erp. Now, I did not plan to go there, but I'll tell you what, the pun kind of fits kind of nicely and stuff. Guys, I am telling you, sex is an amazing kind of a thing. I told Matthew, I said, oh, Matthew, you just wait. Literally wait. And there were all kinds of things across the board like that. Not just sexuality, though that seems to be the big. In fact, let's just kind of here. Let me see if I can't skip down here a little bit. So I mentioned, do not lie, do not steal, obey your parents, sexuality, no other gods before me. And you can think of a whole bunch of other commandments, not just the 10 commandments, because there's a whole lot more in the Bible that says you shall do this, you would do very well to do this, and you would do very, very well to avoid those things. In fact, don't do those things. I'll consider it a sin if you do those things because they will hurt you. So don't do that, like cutting yourself. That would just be, don't do that. Okay, you're with me, right? Guys, what commandment, what things, or whether it's a commandment or whatever, what do you think is probably the most difficult and maybe one of the most critical things within all of the Bible that it says that we should either do or should not do? What do you think? I didn't ask the question very well. Do you want me to just give the answer, or do you think you know what I'm saying enough to try to venture a guess? Anybody? Guys, I'm going to tell you. Idols look awfully different today than they did back then. But I'm going to tell you, there are more idols and more people worshiping idols today than I believe that there's ever been in any time in history. Idols are the things that we put our trust in. Okay? Do you put your trust in God first and foremost? Is he number one that you put your faith and your hope and your trust in? Or are there other things? Let's hear. Wayne, can you give me an example of something today that could possibly become a person's idol? Anything. 69 Mustang. And I have a 69 Mustang, but we'll just throw it out there. Eleanor, 67 GT 500 Shelby, a Shelby, 650 horsepower with the groggle, just gorgeous. You've all seen the movie Gone in 60 Seconds. Have you seen the movie Gone in 60 Seconds? Watch the TV version, please. Okay, not the from the movie, but Eleanor. How could Eleanor become an idol? I'm going to tell you. Oh, if I just had Eleanor, I could go to school and I would be the envy of every single guy and the desire of every single girl. Oh, if I just had Eleanor, I would never ever have a problem again getting a date or making a friend, and everybody would be talking about, have you seen Jeff's car? Have you seen it? Okay, that's a great example. Can you think of an example, either of you, of something out there that today might possibly be an idol for someone? Can you think of anything? That comes to mind? What about you? Something come to your mind? I'm putting you on the spot. I know. It's okay. This is a totally different line of thinking. I get that. Don't be embarrassed at all. I should be careful. There was a house, you know what I'm talking about. There was a house that went for sale in my neighborhood. I could have bought this house for $450,000 at the time. Did I have $450,000? Nope, I did not. Was the house move-in ready and ready to be glorious and wonderful and perfect? No. When we bought the house that we currently live in, it had 12 or 13 70-foot plus tall ash trees, all in different stages of dying. Within 12 months, Matthew and I had to very selectively say, okay, we drop this one first that way, and then we'll have room to drop this one that way, and so forth. And in the 12 months' time, on evenings and weekends and whatever else, we did that. Do you think that was easy? It was painfully hard, painfully hard. We didn't have money to pay somebody else to do it, so we were going to do it. That's my motto. Why pay somebody to do it if you can do it yourself, right? And the thing of it is we had an opportunity to buy this house. In fact, I put a bid in on it. I said, I don't remember. My dad was like, we'll help you do this, just go for it, and stuff. And that's the Gammon motto, go for it. And you figure it out as you go and stuff and all this. Well, the bottom line was there was somebody else who wanted the house, and we went on a little bit of a bidding, war tangent thing. And I'm like, I'm done. I cannot do this. I can't buy the house. And so we let the house go. I think the other family bought the house for like $460,000 or whatever else. An insane amount of money. Here's the thing. The house is worth $1.2 million today. 1.2. It's across the street from where I live, but it's down a little bit. It is right on the water. And he cleared out all of his dead trees and stuff. He did all of this work, which I'm a pastor. I didn't have time to hardly do the work on my own house the way it was. I mean, my house is still in shambles. Amy's like, when are you still going to get these things done? There are more important things, than houses and stuff. But we get in this ideology, if I just have this house, I'll be happy. If I can just walk out of the sliding glass door and walk down to the jet ski and the boat and the water and, all of these things, then I will be happy. Then I will, those things, that house will then make me happy. Do you want to hear some other examples? Yes, my number one answer, car, 67. I was thinking of Eleanor. Number two, career. If I can just become that pastor of that really big church, then everybody will look at me and say, Jeff is so successful. Jeff has arrived. Wow, Jeff. Everybody kneel down and pay homage to Jeff. Are you ready? Now, is it that adulterated? No, we don't let our minds go. But do you think it's anything less than that? No. Not at all. Careers, salaries, money. If the Colts win, Lord, help the Colts pull it out. Because if they do, I will be so happy this week. Really? Am I any happier today because Jimmy Harbaugh, went back and he's looking at the Hoosier Dome in the corner. He's open. We're going to go to the Super Bowl. He caught it. Oh, no, he dropped it. We're not going to the Super Bowl. Y'all know what I'm talking about? 1992? 92, I think it was 92. 1992, the fall of 1992. We were all hurt and broken and sad. Maybe it was 93, I'm not sure. But we think our football teams are going to make us happy. I hate to say it, the weekends, some people just live for the weekends. I just got to get through Monday and through Friday so that I can get to the weekend. You don't think that I have gone in these fits of stupidity where I'm thinking, January's coming and I'll get on the cruise ship and then I'll be happy. Then I will be full. Then I will be what God created me to experience. And it's all a lie. These are all lies. I mean, I'm going to tell you what, the cruise ship is nice. But I tell you, I know people that get on the cruise ship all the time, and the thing of it is getting on the cruise ship anymore is like, you know what, the cruise ship kind of stinks. I don't even enjoy it. Too many people, and all of the, I mean, I have car, career, money, football, weekends, vacation, our looks. Oh, if I can just have hair like Cody's. I mean, with the party going up top and nice and tucked in tight around the sides and all that stuff, then I'll be happy. The house, guys, I'm going to tell you, this is going to hurt you a little bit. Our kids, man, we can make our kids our idols. And I see it all the time. Oh, I'm old and life has passed me by, but I'm going to vicariously live my life through my kids. And they do this. And then they realize, oh, my lands, that didn't work either. And then I just screwed my kids all up. But, some people's like, how am I going to be happy? How am I going to be able to make it through the day? How am I going to have enough energy? Oh, I know. I need some beer. Beer, definitely. Pabst Blue Ribbon, PBJ. Somebody PBJ me, please. Come on. Finally. I watched an episode of The Mentalist. Blew me away. The lady, she's going through life. She's a doctor or a nurse or something, but she's got this major issue with addiction to like alcoholism or something. And and we think that entertainment, I just need to be entertained. Oh, show me, I got to go to the movie. I got to buy that movie pass so I can go to the movie and then I will be happy. Whatever, the season pass to Kings Island, even that gets old. If I get the trophy wife or whatever else, the trophy wife, now you guys are trophy wives and stuff, but your husbands know that it's okay and stuff, and this is good, but I mean, all these people, guys, I mean, do you know the percentages of people that are addicted to pornography today? The guys, not even the guys, the girls today too. So many girls. The numbers today, it's like, man, I'm just a mess. I don't, nobody likes me. So I'll just turn to pornography and then that will make me happy. And the thing of it is they go to like this part of pornography, this part of pornography, that doesn't cut it anymore, this doesn't cut it anymore. It's like a drug, it's like anything else. The next thing you know, they're out there doing some of the most heinous, horrible, kinds of things. Like, how on earth? How does Jeffrey Dahmer get to do Jeffrey Dahmer kinds of things? One step at a time. Right? Because they're looking to fill things. You remember my phrase that I like to call them? They're empty wells. Man, I'm thirsty. Oh, I just need something. Oh, there's a well, and instead of going God to quench our thirst and listen to him, we just go to these empty wells. I'm going to go, the cruise ship will make me happy. Oh, if I just buy a new watch, then that will make me happy. If I just get some really good hair on my head, if I can buff myself up and look like, whatever else, if I go to the 25-year school reunion with my rented car, with my paid $100 for her to go out on a date with me, and my really cool clothes, these are all just messed up spiritual garbage lies like crazy. Guys, I think the hardest thing to do that the Bible talks about is to honor God with money. And the reason why is because we buy into the lie that we think that the car will make us happy. We think that the clothes will make us happy. We think that the watch will make us happy. We think spending money to get really good hair, because I guess you can do that now, can make you really, really happy. All of these different kinds of things we think is going to bring us fulfillment and make us go, at night and make life perfect. And the reality is, guys, the further you go down those paths, the further you realize, man, I am lost and I don't even know how to get back. And that's really where America has been for a long, long, long time now. Jesus in the New Testament spoke more about the topic of money than any other topic that he spoke about. Do y'all know that? It's true. You can just Google that on your phone or on your computer or whatever else. It'll say that. What was Jesus' most talked about topic? He spoke more about money. Why? Because money messes people up. it can mess you up. If you have the wrong, spiritual, thing, it can. Now, I'm going to tell you, one of my favorite phrases, you remember me saying this? My favorite phrases from John Wesley. I love this. Do you remember what it was? Can you remember? Yeah, I know. But John Wesley said this, and I love this. Because to be honest with you, I think I was taught for a while that this wasn't quite right. And when I heard John Wesley say this, I said, well, John Wesley's a really good person, and he must be right, so woohoo! Only later did I really find out in the Bible that, you know what, John said something pretty good here. Here's what John Wesley said. He said, go out into the world and earn as much money as you can. And then take as much money of that you earn and save as much of it as you can. So that you can do what with all of that money that you've saved? Go and be a blessing to other people. So earn all you can, save all you can, so that you can be a blessing to others with all you can. I like that. I like that. Dave Ramsey, has got this thing figured out, and he's had it figured out for a long, long time. And I'll give you some book references and some resources that you can look at from him. A lot of the things, that I'm going to say are things that I've learned over the years from him, okay? But I'll tell you what, he goes out there. I remember when he finally got his finances, turned around and in order. He was a millionaire, then he lost it all, and then he came up out of the dust and became really, really wealthy and stuff again. And he said that one of the biggest thrills was he went to, where was it? It was open on Christmas Eve night late. It was the Waffle House. He went to the Waffle House. He and his wife late on Christmas Eve. Do you know who works at the Waffle House on Christmas Eve really, really late at night? Somebody who's really poor and desperate, who's probably pretty broken. Are they broken because of things that have happened to them? Perhaps. Are they broken because of things that they did to themselves? Yeah, perhaps. Didn't matter. Thing of it is God didn't care whether they brought it upon themselves or if they were subject to other people's oppression. Didn't really matter to Jesus. Didn't really matter to what's his name, Financial Peace University guy, Dave Ramsey. So he goes to the Waffle House like on Christmas Eve and he orders a cup of coffee and a pancake or something, or waffle, right? And then he goes and he leaves. And underneath the plate, he left 5 crisp $100 bills. And then he left. He didn't like say, here, I want you to have, oh, thank you. No, didn't do that at all. In fact, what he did is he made sure that she wouldn't see it. And then he left, and he was far enough away, probably had his binoculars out. The police were thinking, dude, he's getting ready to rob the Waffle House. But he's watching, and he watched the woman's eyes. And he watched her freak out when she picked up the plate, and she goes, and she sees the 5. I mean, how absolutely maddening cool would that be, right? I mean, talk about goosebumps, man. You just, these are wonderful things. I'll tell you, contentment, I'm not so sure contentment for me is, wow, they were in a bad, rough kind of a place, and God allowed me to come in and just be a tiny little part of just blowing their mind. That's a pretty good day for me, right? All right. I'm not going to go in terribly further along. Guys, why do you think that the money thing is hard? What makes it hard? I'm going to tell you what makes it hard. You remember how important I said the contentment thing is? I'm going to tell you the contentment thing is what you want, okay? You can pray for it by name. I have no problem with that. Lord, help me be content with what you bless me with. Those are good prayers, all right? I think the Lord honors those prayers. I'm going to tell you what you need to avoid. The reason why this is so hard is we have been trained, told, spoken to, learned, that's not right, but brainwashed, and a million other things to look at what the person across the street has compared to what we have. It is a comparison thing. I can think of many times when I have had friends and kids in the youth group. I remember youth group, Light and Life. But I remember this even when I was growing up. I recognized it. You know, hey, tell me about your Christmas. Oh, we did this and everything. And they're just like, and I got this and everything else. And that is awesome. But then a little bit later, they hear somebody else sit there and say, yeah, I got the Fender Stratocaster guitar with the double-tubed amplifier and a couple of pedals and stuff like that. And then suddenly, this person who was just like on top of cloud 9, just all like, and stuff like that, suddenly felt like he'd gotten the shaft. How can that be? How can you go from here to here just so quickly? Did anything change? Did the gift that he had, was that taken away from them? Did he find out that instead of the real Nikes, he got like a generic version and the seams were but I mean, what happened? Did anything change? Nothing changed. It was just this, but they have. I have, but look what they have. I am telling you guys, envy will kill you, will absolutely bust you and ruin you. And I'm going to tell you another secret. You may sit there and think, oh my lands, but that neighbor across the way, the person who ended up buying the house that I wasn't able to buy, he seems like he's really happy. We've become good friends. I joke with him, man, why are you living in my house? You know, you know, you're gonna have to, when you're done with this house, you're gonna have to sell it to me for what you paid for it. You know, I mean, all of this stuff and everything. We joke about that, but the reality is, you know, we look at the people around us that we think, you know, the guy, the new Corvette with the not the original trim, but you know they have the new trim that has like 200 more horsepower. I think it's like 900 horsepower. The Z06, is that what it is? There's another one coming that's even going to be, oh, great Scott. And are they beautiful? I mean, absolutely, they're beautiful. They are. And I think it would be fun to have one, but I'm not going to, the thing of it is, you know, you see the neighbor and he's driving around in that Corvette and he's smiling and everything else. And the thing of it is he goes home and his wife is like, we can't afford the insurance on that thing, and I haven't paid the insurance on it. We don't have insurance, and you're out there driving it around, and everybody thinks that we're all this, and we can't even pay the insurance on it. And you know they're going to come and foreclose on the thing and take the car, and it's going to be embarrassing. And how dare you? We had to eat ramen noodles again for the 4th time this week. I mean, the people put on great facades. I mean, I'm telling you what, you want to talk about deception? Facebook. Nothing but lies. I am so happy. Look at how happy we are. Stop frowning and smile. Okay, here we go. You know? And I mean, seriously. I mean, you think people are happy today? Oh, man, you if the aliens came and all they had was our Facebook, wow, look, there's heaven. Look at how happy they are. And then they actually come down and they realize that 64% of the people in America are on stress medicine or whatever it is exactly, right? So, you know, there's all of these things. You know what? If I had the house or if I had the car or if I had the clothes, if I had all of these kinds of things, I'm going to be happier and stuff. Well, you know what? I don't know how you're going to pay for all of those things. I'll tell you. I didn't write this down. I want to say this to you real quickly. I was in Kentucky where I got my master's degree. You have Wilmore, Kentucky, where Asbury University is, and across the street, Asbury Theological Seminary. I went to the seminary as my grad school stuff. And then I lived in Nicholasville, which was way over here. You had Lexington and Louisville way down there, but you had Lexington right there. You had the horse park and all of this stuff. Everybody who lived like over here were filthy crazy rich. And then you had the people over here, like in the Nicholasville area, and they were crazy, filthy poor. Okay, and that's where my apartment was, that Amy and I lived in and stuff like that. I'm going to tell you, I saw both sides. Do you seriously question or wonder at all which group of people seemed happier and were more pleasant and just going through life with merriment instead of stress and anxiety and frustration? Guys, when we were in Avon was Noblesville at that time. Avon was the place. It was the great of, the Midwest. Even as much, it was the second Zionsville, okay? And I got to go and be the associate pastor there. And all of this stuff. And for a number of years we were there, and then we left there. And do you remember where we went after that? We went to Elkhart County, right there on the line of Goshen and Elkhart. You either made, if you lived in Goshen, Elkhart area, you either made band instruments or RVs, or you worked at a fast food place or something like that, there were no big jobs unless you were the owner of the RV company or the band instrument place or whatever else. I think, the people at our church, the average income, now mind you, we left there 15 years ago to come here, but I think the average family combined income there was like $38,000. $38,000. And I am going to tell you, those people up in Elkhart were 10 times happier and more joyful and carefree than the people in Avon. And they were a lot happier than most of the people that I've known around here in Noblesville. They didn't have squat. They lived in their little 1,200 square foot houses. They had cars that they were always having to work on and everything else. But I'm going to tell you, they depended on God, and they had joy. And they didn't look to their money to make them happy. Guys, this class is going to teach you how to get healthy, spiritually and financially. It will tell you how to get happy. Guys, money isn't a physical issue nearly as much as it is a spiritual issue. And I have to tell you, I really have no doubts in my mind that God intended for this to be that way from the beginning. I think that it's a measuring rod that we can look at and we can hold up against ourselves as Christians to see how much do I truly trust and believe God and everything else. If God says to me, don't put chainsaw bar oil in my mini bike, or if God says this way, when it comes to sexuality, or this and that when it comes to finances, or treat your kids, and it doesn't matter the topic. And guys, please hear me when I say this. It does not matter the topic. The devil has a heyday sitting there say, hey, do you hear that? The pastor's talking about money. I mean, do you see how less people are here than a normal Wednesday night? He's going to talk about money. You don't think that I realize, oh my land, he's probably going to at some point say 10%. He's going to say 10% at some time. Do we really want to go there and hear that again? Shut up, Pastor Jeff. So I get that. You don't think guys, I am telling you, you won't like this. You two will not like this. You want to know what? Here, honestly and truly, take 6 months. If you want to, take 6 months. Let me think. I don't care. You pick the church, a different church. Don't give your 10% to us. Give it to a different church. We have no benefit from it whatsoever. Guys, if God wanted us to have money, he'll sit there and say, golly, look, there's oil coming out of that there ground when we dug the hole to put the footer in. I don't know. I mean, seriously, right? He's got a sheep on a million. Tithing is not what you think it is. Has nothing to do with what you think it's about. It just isn't. Now, is this, guys, I am telling you, this is not about tithing. It's about obedience. It's about obedience. And people sit there and say, oh, you preach it when it comes to obedience over drugs. You preach it. Obedience over gambling. You preach it. Obedience over alcoholism. And you get on the chair, take your shoes off, and you preach it twice as long about pornography. But don't talk about tithing very much. Because if you do, we'll get up and leave. And they have, and they do. They do. They do. I mean, I don't speak about tithing very often. I try to include little bits here and there. But the board will say, Jeff, you need to teach and preach more about tithing. I'm like, every time I do, somebody leaves. Are you serious? Okay, well, let's just go back. Let's talk about it. I preached about tithing on this day. Do you remember who left shortly? You know, and they don't want to hear it. I get it. I get it. I'm not asking you to, God doesn't like robots. God doesn't like robots, and I don't want to try to make you into a robot or try to program you or whatever else. What I am going to say to you is, boy, that mini bike does really, really good when you put SFA or SEF 40 straight motor oil in it. That thing just purrs. I feel like, what's the name on I feel like Andy Griffith on the Andy Griffith show. Oh, that just purrs. You know, but it just does. You know, you honor the Lord. You know, if your sexuality is that way, I mean, I seriously, I kind of think God gets up there, he's kind of smirking. Wow. Well, there you go. When sexuality is that way, regardless, across the board, just across the board, it's just obedience. Because it's just, I promise you, it's just obedience. And, there's verses, and we will say 10% or whatever else, but you're right. One last thing. I got 10 minutes. Are you guys okay? I got 10 minutes and we're done, okay? One last thing here. There's a concept that I want to preach a sermon series on, and I just know that I'm afraid people will hate it, and they'll sit there and say, oh, my lands, Jeff, you're really making me uncomfortable here when you're talking about this and stuff. And, but I heard a message on it. I went back. I started reading through these passages, and I'm just like, oh, my lands. Why are people afraid to talk about this? And churches are afraid to talk about this. And I just think that we would do really, really well. Let me talk about it real quickly, and then I'll let you guys go, okay? Back in the day, back in biblical days, I imagine even in Old Testament days, well, I know it was in Old Testament days, but not just in Old Testament days, but also in biblical days, in Jesus's days, and Paul's days, and the days of the early church. I don't know when this really kind of stopped. I don't know. It might be a good study for me to do. But let's say that, I don't know. I don't even know how to, but let's say that you came into some insane, serious hardship. You don't count the cost before building your house or your tower or whatever else, right? The Bible says, yeah, you should count the cost. A wise person knows how much it's going to cost or whatever. So let's say you buy a piece of property and you thought it was pretty solid ground, but you realize that, yeah, there was rock there, but there was sand underneath it. I don't know. And you're building, and you get 2/3 of the way through, and not only do you run out of money, but then suddenly there was like a shift in the land, right? Okay, and next thing you know, the foundation's given out, and next thing you know, what you own and what you have built and what you have there isn't even worth 1/10 of what you paid for it or whatever else. And you have to pay the lumber people, and you have to finish off paying the guy that you bought the land from, even though it was crummy land or whatever else. But you can't. Do you know what would happen? You and your kids would be sold off This is what happened. Old Testament and New Testament. The word is doulos. Doulos, okay? It's the Greek word for servant. But this one guy that I heard, he got so ticked off. He's like, don't say servant. It doesn't mean servant. It means slave. Why are you watering it down? It's not a servant. It's a slave. I remember this guy, saying to that. And I went back and I looked, and every single time that word was used, it's slaved. He got really ticked off. Bondservant. I thought he was going to start throwing things. There's no bondservant. That's a slave. You couldn't pay your debt. You had to work for your creditor, to the person that credited you the money. And your kids did as well. You became their servants. Maybe you sold off all that you had, and you went and you sat at the person's door, and whenever visitors came in, they would come in and they would look at you, and you would say, please lift your right foot, and they would take your sandal off, and you would have to wash their nasty, smelly, infested with, fungus. Yeah, fungus feet, whatever, and all of that, and you're like, oh, my land, and or whatever it was. But you were the servant. You had to do this, and they would say, now you still owe me 800 denarii. A denarii is a day's worth of wages. So you're going to have to work for me for little more than 2 years. And then you would do this. But what if it was even worse? What if it was like something, really, really bad or whatever else? You were the slave, and you had to do whatever they had to do. Now, let's think about this. Jesus said a master had 3 servants. Was the word servants the correct word? No, the word is doulos. What does word doulos mean? He had 3 slaves. To the first slave, he gave 5 talents. To the second slave, he gave 2 or 3 talents. And to the third slave, he gave 1 talent. And then he said, listen, I got to go. I'll be back, I don't know, maybe next time or a year from now, a year from whenever. I'm not sure when, but you need to take this and you need to put it to work for me. And when I come back, I expect to see some huge interest on my investments that I give you. He goes, the one guy, you know the story. He takes his 5 talents, he puts it to work. By the time the master comes back, he's earned 10. The guy had 3, had 3 more, he had 6. The guy who had 1 was scared. He took his talent, he dug it in the ground, he put it in the ground. He said, Master, I knew that you were a hard man. I knew that you give to people to do your bidding and stuff, and I was kind of scared of you and everything. So you know what? This is yours. You gave it to me. This is what's yours. And he looked at that doulos, he looked at that slave and said, you're worthless. You go and put him in prison and have him work in the prison system until he can pay off what he owes me. That's literally what it talks about, right? Okay, are you ready for this? You're not going to like it. We were in debt. We chose to follow the way of the devil. We rebelled against God, and we sinned. And because of that, we could live out our lives however we wanted. But if we wanted God's forgiveness, and if we wanted the kind of eternal life that God, created us to have and everything else, Jesus took care of that debt. The consequence of sin is always what? Every time. The consequence of sin is death. So God said, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to die on the cross in the form of the Son, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. If that confuses you, talk to me about it later. But he goes and he dies on the cross. Many, many, many people, not all people, I don't personally say I absolutely believe that or don't believe that, but they say that when Jesus died on the cross, he was given into the hands of the devil, where the devil just mocked him and continued until he rose from the grave. Catholics believe that, that's part of the Nicene, not the Nicene Creed, but one of the creeds that they say. But whether this or that or whatever else, Jesus died on the cross and paid our penalty. And if we choose to look to him and allow him to be our Lord, our master, and we follow him, those are the words. We are his. We give ourselves over to him. We are the servant. We're the slave. We're the doulos. God says, hey, listen, I died on the cross. I want you to have life. I want you to have life abundantly. But I do have things that I want you to do. Since I gave my life, I want you to do the things for others that I have done for you. I want you to tell them about me. I want you to lead them to me. I want you to do all these things. Everything that you have been given is ultimately mine. It's the same thing with a slave. They're not ours. We are, and I don't like the word, in fact, I wrote it down, but I don't like the word stewards. People like to say, oh, we're stewards. We're taking care of all of God's things. Well, you know what? We're not even, you could say that, a steward. It's entrusted. Here, you're entrusted with these 10 talents now, or these 5 talents, or whatever. Go and make more, or whatever else. But those aren't ours. Now, he wants us to have a house. He wants us to have a car. He wants us to have food. He wants us to go on vacation, because you know what? Vacations benefit us. You know what? The cruise ship is nice in that I go away. I don't get phone calls. I don't read emails. I don't get texts and stuff. And it's kind of amazing. By the time I get back, wow, the sermons have gotten kind of better. What's up with that? Oh, yeah, he just got back from vacation. He's rested. These are fair things. He's more than fair. He's incredibly fair. But guys, these are, and I love this because I know that like Randy Kern, for example, he would always do this and do this well. I would call him before I had a truck and I was driving around in my Honda Accord Sport. You remember that car? That car was car. Paddle shifters. Man, I would go down 37, and when I would go on 465 eastbound, I'd grab that paddle and go, and I'm just like weaving through. And you not think that felt good when that set you back in the seat a little bit? And it had a groggle. It was the regular cam. I didn't put a different cam in it, but it had a groggle. They did something to it to make it groggle. It was nice. Had an awesome Bose sound system in it. And God's like, yeah, you know what? I get it. That's fine. No problem. But the things that we have, the resources, the talents, all of those things, we would do well to realize we didn't come into this world with anything. Gifts, talents, anything. These are the Lord's, and he has entrusted us. Now, I'm going to say one more thing. What happens on the 7th day? What's that? Who rests? The master rests? Do you know? It's okay. It says so clearly, you shall rest, your servants will rest, the ox and the donkeys and the sheep, you better make sure that they're resting. If you have a visitor, a foreigner, come into your house, you tell them, hey, listen, you're welcome to stay here, but today is the Lord's day, and we are going to rest, all of us. No work. Everybody got to rest. If you were a slave, what day of the week do you think you couldn't wait for? That 7th day, that Sabbath day, the Sabbath rest. That would happen every 7 days. Now, are you ready for this? What would happen every 7 years? Now, don't make sure you think about it. If you're going to throw your answer out real fast, make sure you got it right, because you might get it wrong. Okay, but do you know what would happen every 7 years? Every 7 years, at the end of the seventh year, there would be the time of forgiveness. And what that meant was if there was a debt and you owed the debt and you had to become a worker for this person, or you had to work a fifth job, and everything else to pay for, this creditor back for this debt, at the end of every seventh year, all of those debts were forgiven. Did you know that? It's in the law. Leviticus chapter 15 says that every 7 years. But then there's the big, awesome wow. And this happened not every 7 days or every 7 years, but it was after a set of 7 years. So if you do your math, do you guys know, do you know what 7 times 7 is? Do you know? 49. So at the end of the 49th year, there was a special season. Do you know what that season was called? It's called the year of what? Anybody remember? Jubilee. It's in the Bible. Google it. Read about it. Do you know what happened on the year of Jubilee? All the debts are forgiven. If you had to sell your piece of property, you know what? We have to liquidate. So we're liquidating all of this stuff. So you got to get rid of your land. Land was returned to the original family. Isn't that amazing? And that's pretty cool. Because I'll tell you what, like the country song, Buy Dirt. I love that song, right? Buy dirt. And so so all of this. Now, why is that important? You think about that. Because the fact is we're the slave. We're the doulos. So there's the 7 days, woohoo. There's the 7 years, woohoo. But then there's the year of Jubilee, woohoo, hoo-hoo. All right? So you think about that. Now, let's just recap real quickly. I talked a whole bunch about the spiritual aspects of finances. For an hour and a half, you listened to me, and you did amazing. And kids, I hope you had a great time downstairs with Miss Amy and everything. Okay? Next week, we're going to come back, and we're going to say, what's wise finances? Wise finances. What should we be doing if we have 5 talents? How are we going to do really, really well with these 5 talents? Do you think that God wants us to be poor? No. Do you think God wants to prosper us? Yes. In fact, he says, test me on these things. Do these things and see if I don't open up the flood house and just pour out blessings and riches upon you. Guys, if you knew what Amy's and my, was that correct grammar? Good. Incomes are, our total income, you'd be, no. You guys, well, and I'm going to tell you, have you been to my house? Have you seen you don't know what I make. Maybe you do. But you've been to my house. Have you seen my boat? Have you seen what Amy and I drive? Am I ever lacking for decent clothes? It's Prime Day. Yesterday and today. This is not we won't talk about that, okay? I am not doing without. We went to Kings Island, and one of the people that went to Kings Island with us said, we should get the fast passes. The fast passes aren't cheap. Are the fast passes cheap? They're not. But you know what? It was okay. And we got the fast passes. And we lived large. Do you think that God is okay with us living large? Guys, I'm going to tell you, if you listen to God, If you listen to God and if you do what God says, you're going to live large that way, that way, that way, that way. If you listen to God, whatever it is that he says, hey, trust me in this area and do this, and you do it, you will live large, blessed. Yeah, regardless of what the topic is. Now, yeah, we're talking about finances, but anything. Time, talent, treasures, anything. Give it over to the Lord and all those subcategories of that and stuff. I love those kids. They're such good kids. I can't wait. You know what? I'm going to tell you something that if you do once a week for each of those little kids, by the time that they are 35, they will have about, I want to say $600,000 each. It'll scare you. I'll share this with you, and you're going to say, Jeff, why didn't you tell me that when I was 18? And you're going to say, I knew that when I was 18, and I was all about it, and just different things. And we're going to talk about that. Next week when we come together, it's going to be the very, very practical. What does it look like day to day, week to week? How do you get from here to there? What does that look like? That's what it is. I wanted to start with what I believe is the most important. The spiritual trust. Everything else is garbage. You mean I shouldn't listen to God when he says don't eat of the fruit? Don't listen to him. I'm telling you, if you trust him, it'll go very well. Listen, those of you that stuck with us to the very end watching online, God bless you. Thank you so very much. I hope this was good. You are welcome to leave comments, okay? What I would love for you to do is you can click the like button, okay? That would be good. And you guys, you couldn't leave, so you were kind of forced here and stuff, and you had to wait till the kids. So anyway, thanks, guys, for coming. You guys were all awesome. I'm going to pray with us, and we'll be done. Father, thank you for entrusting us, Lord, as you have with these incredible things, Lord, that have come from you, from your storehouse of treasures. Help us to understand them, to learn these good truths, and to put these good truths in practice. Most of all, Lord, help us to trust you and to be obedient to all the things that you've shared with us and you tell us. In Jesus' name I pray these things. Amen.